Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Brown, and today I'm super excited to introduce you all to Chris Happ. He is the CEO of Virtuous AI. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Matt? Great to be here.
Yeah, man, great to have you here finally.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this
But,
for a while. I'm glad the stars aligned.
I know. And that's obviously where the magic happens. So let's get the magic going, shall we?
Yeah.
So, for our audience around the world that don't know anything about Virtuous AI, give our audience around the world the elevator pitch about Virtuous and yourself. Like, what exactly are you guys up to?
Yeah. The easiest way to comprehend what we're doing is we're building a corporate brain. And what does that mean? So the easy button and what we're seeing, the logical way, I guess, to some extent, people are implementing AI is to go to your siloed system that exists in your company. So the sales CRM or HRIS or ERP and buy AI from that vendor, sort of the bolt on AI. What happens is we remain in silos and we automate to average because we limit the information that the AI has. So we've flipped it on its head and put AI right in the center of the company, right at the core. And if you think about what's happened to companies when you have these siloed systems, you connect them through IT and you've created this information gateway or bottleneck in your company. So we want to replace that with AI right there that listens, watches, and learns from the systems, the causes and effects that happens. So a brain forms and you can do amazing things with that. We all are kind of fascinated with these large language models, and they're really cool. They have the entirety of the written information that we've ever seen, and you can interact with them in ways we've never seen before. But they're probabilistic, and you get the wrong answer, and they're expensive. So the irony is, if you create a brain and you create a smaller model that reflects the essence of your organization, it's private, it's more accurate, it's less expensive. So all the problems that exist with frontier models are solved by creating a brain. So that's what we're building is a orchestration layer that learns your business and then figures out how to answer questions. It may talk to a data warehouse. It may talk to uh, an ERP and then a CRM to piece information together. It may actually end up talking to one of the frontier models as well to help be a thought partner in solving a problem. But we're building the brain that sits right in the middle of your organization to free the information flow.
Mm. So,
That
Chris,
wasn't
you
really the
obviously
elevator pitch, was it? That was
no,
kind of
no, I get it, but it is
yeah,
complex, and I think a lot
yeah.
of mid-market CEOs, to your point, are being bombarded with a lot of different AI tools, right? And in
Mhm.
many cases, teams aren't sure exactly what a new way of working is now,
Yeah.
in this new paradigm. And so, what are you personally seeing out there, given that you engage with so many CEOs? Is AI, from your point of view, actually working for these businesses or not?
Broadly speaking, no. Um, we did a study recently where we pulled thousands of mid market CEOs, and 9 out of 10 said AI is strategic for my business. I know it, there's something there, but that same 9 out of 10 said we have no strategy. We haven't figured it out yet, and that's just the honest feedback of what I'm seeing happening in the market is that it's still being figured out. It is a massive shift to the way we think. I was just talking to a CEO of a manufacturer yesterday, and we were talking about um, our system. He's using it, and he was um, trying to solve a problem, and he asked me, "How do I do this in the system?" And I just said, I didn't even think about it. I just said, "Well, ask the system. It knows how to." It's your brain. It knows what it can do. It knows your systems. It will tell you the answer. And he's like, I gotta remember that. I gotta think to ask the system. And we have to learn how to interact with this new superpower. And so organizationally, that's not easy. I mean, we've been doing things 10, 20, 30 years. And so we're shifting the way we go. I tell my team, We never start with a blank sheet of paper. And what does that mean? Well, you don't come into a meeting without a plan and an agenda, but you don't need to build that from scratch. You log in, you ask the system, build me an agenda. I have this meeting coming up, and it will do it. And it's probably 90% right. So we don't need to spend the time and that burn the cognitive load to do that. We start with a thought partner and then we refine, as opposed to kind of starting from scratch and building the work. So it's shifting the way you work, and that's just not easy for people. Um, we Another example I found interesting. We were implementing a pretty complex accounting process for one of our customers, and they had a team. Uh, they had offshored this process. So you have a team of people who have been taught and trained to kind of follow a process and not ask a lot of questions. Well, AI is very good at following a process and not asking a lot of questions. It will go complete it. So if you just hand those people this tool and say, here, do your process differently, you have a natural conflict happening. We're asking them to be creators with the system that's replicating what they're doing and asking them to kind of think about it differently. We're not really setting it up for success in that way. So it is a shift in the way we work. And it's, how do you pair humans with technology in a new way? And that's really kind of the fun part of what we're figuring out as we're implementing this and making these organizations successful with it. But I will tell you, the solve is not at the edge. Buying AI at the edge and putting a bolt on absolutely does not work. You're just automating, you're faster to average. AI already knows how to build a very good sales process. What's different about your sales process than someone else is your special sauce. You need that in the brain. You got to figure that out and then amplify. Our mutual friend Locke, own your different. That's what I think this is about, is how do you figure out what's unique about you and amplify it?
Absolutely. And actually, you talk about something called silo tax, don't you?
Mhm.
And so, can you unpack exactly what is silo tax and why is it uh, killing businesses or mid-market companies, as an example?
Yeah, yeah. Think about, so we have a customer. They have uh, it's an e-commerce brand, and they have like many companies do, a chat bot on the website. So if you have a question, you're going to be interacting with AI. And what does that AI know? Very little. It's sitting at in a silo. So it doesn't really know who you are, doesn't know much about what you've ordered. It knows its limited information that's been given and what it has in from its sort of data at the website level. They replace that and connect it to our brain. So now it knows everything about that person, all of their order history, speaks like a person would inside this company. And the tax being paid is this bad experience that you have for the end user because the information is siloed. They have you have a AI agent that feels like an AI bot talking to your customer. And this could be a very high LTV customer, and yet you're treating them like they're not. So by switching that off and talking to a centralized brain that knows, hey, this person was a very valuable customer. And in fact, maybe I don't want to have an AI bot talking. Maybe I should pick up the phone right now and call them because they have a question about their shipping or something like that. So that the tax is replicated in many ways every day by limiting the information that you can see and putting it in these silos. It compounds when you start to ask questions about, um, think about something as simple as, what was sales yesterday? Most people have that in multiple systems. So to compile that report, which should be pretty simple, it usually takes a person, or everybody has this Excel sheet that they build, right? That secretly runs the business. How long does it take you every day to fill that thing out, right? So if it's a couple of hours to go pluck and pull there's your tax, right? You just wasted time pulling data when you should be going, what is the stuff in that Excel sheet telling me about my business? And therefore, like, what strategic action do I need to think about or take? So the AI first CEO has the AI has pulled all that information, has analyzed it and said, hey, I've got two things I want to bring to your attention. I've looked at all the systems, I've looked at everything, and I've got this issue I want to talk to you about today. And so that's how you eliminate that tax is put a brain in the middle and let it talk to these systems.
Mm. But isn't the danger here wherein CEOs allow their teams to buy, their own AI tools? It's like buying SaaS, right? It's bought by everybody. It's not just bought by the head of IT. So
Yeah.
if teams are buying a little bit of AI here and another tool there, and in the context of silo tax, like what's the real danger in that approach?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Well, and it's easy. That's how we buy. Budgets live at the silo level or the department level or the individual level. Think about the information drift that happens in your company. I think the future um, looks something like this. The actual value of a business is the brain, and by that I mean how the business makes decisions, how it functions, what happens if I raise price to sales, like all of the cause and effect that happens from the stuff happening in the business. And that could be captured in a brain or a knowledge graph, which is what we do. So I think that's the future of the business. So that could live on a jump drive. So I could sell a business in the future, which is basically saying, hey, you want to buy my business? Here's the jump drive. You don't want all the leases and all that other stuff. You can now run my business by plugging into this brain and asking it questions. So if I am not building that brain, and if you believe that, or you think that there's a likelihood of what I just said being true, any system that you leave in a silo is not contributing to your corporate understanding of how your business functions. And it's even, we have a concept in our platform called rooms, and it's people. Think of Slack, something like that, or Teams, people with AI. An example might be you and me are working on a budget or a sales plan. And so it maybe looks sort of like an Excel sheet that we're both looking at. And then we say, hey, let's run a bull and a bear case and then change this sheet. We ask an agent in the room to do that, and then it presents it to us, and we start kind of commenting back and forth on that. That process of doing that is building into a brain, which is how do we work? How do we plan? How do we think about this? It built this um, bull case, and how do we respond to it? That's the essence of the business, and all that information. You and me doing that process, and the value that we created by going through that process is lost. And that is the value that we're trying to unlock every day. Is like that human interaction and the intuition that we sort of applied with the AI helping us with its superpower. It goes and crunches a bunch of data very quickly, and then we can kind of reason about it. That's what we're trying to capture. And by buying the way we've always done, you're basically saying, yeah, I'm going to just keep siloing that off or limiting that information just to that one place of the organization.
Mm. So we touched on mid-market earlier, and given everything you've shared, for me being objective, it would make sense perhaps to actually focus on the enterprise because of the number of silos there, right? But you don't. You guys actually focus on the mid-market. So can you tell me a bit about the Wells Fargo meeting that shaped that decision?
Yeah, yeah. I can neither confirm nor deny who the meeting was with, but um, yeah, it was eye opening for me. As I took the CEO job in June of 24, and so early on, of course, you'll sell to enterprise. That's where the big ticket contracts are, and in that process, the light bulb popped for me that organizations that get to a certain size, there's a lot of inertia there, and the buying behaviors and um, uh, the sort of departments and the silos that have formed um, are near impossible to break down. So I made a decision then and there to sell to CEOs in the mid market who say, "Yeah, Chris, you're right. We do need a brain, and I'm going to own breaking down the silos in my organization to do this." And you may start with a use case when you implement this. Most people do. You don't come in and just say, um, release AI and away you go. Generally, there's a burning bush that you're going to kind of start with, and you wire up or connect up. It's probably, 3/4 of your systems to kind of solve that. And then it just compounds from there. But if I go to the CEO and say, hey, we're going to put a brain in the center of this company, and there's going to be a massive organizational change that accompanies it, um, most would say, I don't want to sign up for that. That's a lot of work, and it can be. But I think that's the real opportunity in the mid market, is that they're more nimble and they can adopt and figure out this technology faster because they don't have that same kind of a inertia they're fighting against. Um, so for us, that was the formative pivot, that meeting and that sort of realization that, wow, this really is the opportunity for the mid market.
Chris, you talk about your solution is Bayer, BAIO, or the
Yeah.
Business AI Operating System. So that sounds quite technical, and a lot of CEOs of mid-market firms, well, they're not technical. So what does that actually mean? Can you just distill it down for a leader who's not technically minded?
Yes. So BAO, business automation, intelligence, and outcomes. So it's a mixture of automated workflows. So think process automation, a business warehouse or a data warehouse or a BI, business information system. But that's sort of meaningless to have intelligence and workflows unless we're driving to outcomes. So what it does is looks at all this signal that comes in, other systems, people interacting, and then it says, what outcomes or what goals do we have as a business? And let me help you achieve those. So let's move faster to our outcomes. So I live in our system. It knows my revenue goals, and every day it's pushing me towards that. And it's looking at everything happening in the business and then surfacing things to me to achieve outcomes. And that's really the end of the day is take out AI, take out tech, take all that stuff out. It's just a faster way to achieve outcomes by connecting information.
hmm But isn't that then a form of sort of what is called connected intelligence versus tactical AI? So break that down for me, those two concepts. Like, what's the difference then, and why does it matter?
Well, I think of connected intelligence as the ability to ask any question and an a get an intelligent answer. So I think in many ways that's the failure of all the I shouldn't say failure, that's not fair. Um, all these dashboards and BI tools, if you think about them, they're amazing at looking back. So you connect all this information, and then I think about, okay, what do I want to see? And then I want to double click on something. So what would that look like? You sort of have already diagnosed your problem, and then you put it into a dashboard, and then you look at it and you spend a bunch of time. And when you want a new one, it takes 60 days. So I think of connected intelligence as the ability to real time ask a question and get an answer. We call them flashboards in ours. They're meant to be more ephemeral, because if I already know the dashboard that I wanted, I probably already solved the problem. Like, why do I need a dashboard? It should be more, what's the problem right now and what should I do about it? So I think of connected intelligence as a way to ask that. But an outcome is, hey, I found this problem you weren't looking at, and I've got 3 solutions for you. Do you want to do A, B, or C? So a system isn't waiting for you to prompt it. It's being proactive. It's being agentic. It's bringing a workflow to you, whatever your role is in the organization. I'll take the accounting example. If you're you're closing the books at the end of the month. The system now will go do that for you, and then it's going to surface, hey, I found this problem in step 17 of our reconciliation process. I need your help. But it used to be you had to take it through 1, 2, 3, all the way up through 17. But now the system's going to proactively come to you and say, hey, I've done all this work. I'm connected to all your systems. So I have connected intelligence. I used it. And the outcome is I wasn't able to complete this work. I need your help here in this step. And then you tell it yes or no, or you help it. And you say, remember that next time this comes up or something like this, here's how you solve this problem. So now I've mixed knowledge and a workflow into the connected intelligence. And then the outcome is faster closing of the books, or, a fast speed to decision or speed to action.
Mm-hmm. Chris, speaking of process and outcomes, you guys have what's called a walk, run, scale model. So, what does that mean for a business that's just curious about AI to actually running the company through this connected intelligence platform?
Yeah. So, all right. So, walk to me is connect your systems, and it's important that you do that so you can build trust. And in that sort of walk stage, I want to know that if I ask a question, I have faith or confidence in the answer. And it's also about interacting with the system and teaching it. So I brought up the example before. What was sales yesterday? We all calculate that differently. Every business I've been at, there's not a standard answer to that. That's, a sprinkle of this, subtract that, and there's their answer. So part of the walk phase is ask it, what was sales yesterday? It comes back with an answer and you go, you're missing. We actually divide by 7 for this particular way to calculate it. And it goes, okay, got it. Now I know. So by the end of the walk phase, you say, wow, this is really good. It's talking to the different systems we have. It connects and I get an answer that I expect and I get it every time. Then we say, all right, you're ready to run. What does that mean? Okay. Now that I trust the answer, I can start to insert workflows, which is go get an answer and then move that to another system. So some data comes in, I run a process, and I trust that what it puts into the other system, a system of record, let's say you want to pay a bill, invoice comes in, system does its process, and then I want to put it in for payment. So unless I trust it, it's not very wise to automate it because people will resist that. So we've learned a lot of people just jump to the automation stage, but they've skipped the trust building. And so people resist it because they aren't sure that it's right, or when they see it, and if it is wrong, just in that automation stage, because you haven't taught it kind of how you calculate sales, that's where it breaks down. So we're very rigid about this walk, run, scale. So after you've sort of walk and ran, what does scale look like? That's when you're really kind of ripping the governor off. It starts to become more agentic. So you let agents start to make decisions. So think about like the tension in any company. There's a customer acquisition, there's a cost of goods, there's a lifetime value of the customer. Those are all at odds, right? I could give the product away free, more would sell, but my COGS would suffer. So think about agents that represent each of those arguing. So if you want to make a price change, they're arguing with each other to try to figure that out. And then you automate price changing on your website, for example. But people aren't doing that anymore. You're letting these agents do it because you've trained them on how the business thinks and the value trade-offs you would make. Are you willing to lose a customer to raise $1? Or what are the other sort of value trade-offs that every business has to decide that make them unique? So that's the scale phase. Very few companies are there where it's truly that dynamic. And I think very few, not everyone will get there. Some people may say, like, we're just not that comfortable right now to be in that place. But it does all start with a trust building foundation at the walk phase, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I love that model. That's very, very cool. So let's kind of bring this home for our audience and talk about some real world applications of what you guys do and the impact that it can have. So one of the stories you were sharing with me the other day was the Mugsy Jeans story. So I'd love for you just to unpack that for our audience, like what was broken, what happened and what was the sort of outcome? Because I think something was happening on Black Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was so good. And I'll put it in play. I love the jeans. They're awesome jeans. It's my go-to gift now for everybody. They're really comfortable. So commercial over for Muggsy, but this to me is the way this was. Um, the smile it put on my face, I can't even. I love talking about it. So it's Black Friday, and obviously for e-commerce or retail, that's a big sales kind of period. In many companies, 40% of their revenue for the year comes from sort of that like Black Friday to Christmas window. So this is a major starting point to that. And um, what they were noticing is they were getting the same number of visitors as the previous year, but they weren't converting. So people weren't buying. They were coming to the site but not buying. And they didn't know why, but they guessed that they didn't have a big enough sale. So like their words, not mine. We're at the bar tipping with singles, and everyone else has got 20s. And so
Mhm.
we think we got to have a bigger offer. Okay, so that's the intuition. The CEO has 15 years in the business. You trust the intuition, right? It's grounded in what he's learned. Jumps in the system, jumps in VAI, Virtuous, and says, "Hey, I got to solve this problem now. I got to, this is a massive revenue potential day for me, and I've got to solve it." System goes and runs a bunch of scenarios. It's connected to every one of his systems. It knows all the past and says, "Hey, got some ideas for you here. What about 40% off the flagship pair of jeans? What do you think about that?" And that's a terrifying thing to say. You're basically giving away your best product at no margin. Like that's a big, big jump to take. So they go back and they're running scenarios. His intuition, the superpower of this thing, the ability to compute. They landed on a strategy, something like that, where basically we're going to heavily discount the flagship product. It resulted in um, higher conversions, average order value up like $8, and items sold from like I'll mess up the numbers, but like an extra half of an item sold over the previous year. So massive success. Rapidly changed their business strategy. And it was this person working with this computer to figure out the strategy real time and then implement it. It was the coolest thing to see. And it couldn't have happened if you didn't have his intuition. If you just ask the machine, what do you do? Here's the problem. It'll be, it'll have some decent ideas, but him and his intuition and what he knew about the business and his customers paired with this machine that was hyper aware of that too was just a really cool thing to see happening.
Mhm. So, Chris, I've got another note here about $2 million freed up in cash from one inventory use case. Can you give me a bit more context to that? Was that like a manufacturing firm? Was it an e-commerce firm?
Yeah, this was also an e-commerce firm. What they did, so um,
Okay,
they
so
would,
I just want to get the question right.
yeah,
And then, yeah, so that's fine. So it's an e-commerce company.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Here we go. That's awesome, Chris. I love that Maxi Jeans story. Haven't tried their jeans yet, but now that you're a brand advocate, I'm going to have to get me get myself a couple pairs.
I'll send
But,
you a pic. I won't ask. I won't ask on the pod the waist and length, but I'll get
I'm in the best shape of my life. Okay. But Chris, you mentioned to me when we were chatting the other day that you had an e-commerce client, and I think you mentioned something about they've freed up $2 million or something like that, from in terms of their inventory. So when something like that happens, like how does that ripple through an e-commerce business like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In e-commerce, and we have manufacturers doing it as well. So if you're freeing up that cash, there's this constant tug. Marketing wants to spend more, 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 and what happens is all of that money just sitting in inventory is money that can't be spent to get new customers. So it creates a virtuous, in this case, a unvirtuous cycle. But we want to flip that around and create virtuous cycles of goodness. So for them, if you think about the way people plan, they say, okay, take last year's numbers. I want to grow at 30%. So there's my inventory plan, give or take. And then you hire someone to kind of like check. I'm going to do a little bit of math around the edges. So it's not just a straight like 30% plan. And that's what we're going to do. The AI, and if it's connected to your systems, you'd say, you tell me the plan. Go. Look at all of our data from the past. You know our customers. Go look at who's going to buy what when. Our customers can tell you, Muggsy, for example, can tell you when you're going to buy your next pair of jeans, most likely, because it has all of this data and the system builds its own models to figure that out. So imagine planning now sales for the next year with that knowledge. You now free up all of that you guessed at in inventory and can redeploy that in other areas. In their case, let's go get more customers. I'd much rather have that 2 million going to get more customers and then more accurately predicting inventory. And that creates that cycle. So there's countless examples of things like that. Not just the, inventory ramifications, but just the overall like customer experience of that. You know them better and can better serve them. You talk about like, if you know when people are likely to buy things, do you need to even spend in advertising the way you used to? If you look at like kind of the way people advertise now, it's, hey, we'll just put a bunch of money in Meta or Google, and they own the customer. They tell you target a cohort. But if you have the customer and you know their behaviors and why even do that, right? Why not just go directly to them and sort of, it's your customer, don't leave that to some of these other channels. And so it frees up a lot of really interesting possibilities as you start to connect up this brain and then start to ask it questions.
Mm. So it's fascinating, and I love the real world use cases there.
Yeah.
And it does make sense, right? That virtuous cycle. See what you did there earlier. Virtuous.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. So let's wrap this up. So for a CEO that's nodding along, going, "Yeah, no, this sounds great," and they are maybe uncertain about where to start, what's the first conversation they should have? Do you think?
Themselves. They should say, will I own this? Do you think, so ask yourself, how will AI or how can AI disrupt my business? Go put it in any chat window and say, you want to compete with me? Here's my business. How would you disrupt it with AI? And I do this all the time. I'll be at a conference, and CEO of Marriott or the CEO of a massive company, and you put in, how would AI disrupt? And there's some real reasonable scenarios. You think there's a massive moat. I think Marriott has like 300 million Marriott Bonvoy members, but like the AI first hospitality company, like how would you do it? And you think to yourself and go, how real is that? Like, what's the likelihood and what would have to be true for me to believe that? And I promise you're going to get to a place where you're like, yep, this is real. I should really adopt this. And then you'd say, okay, if it's that real, why would anyone but the CEO own it? And why would anyone but the CEO go, this is a strategic imperative. I must own this and not let an AI first or someone else who's better using this technology beat me to it. I mean, look at what's happening in the world. There's this sort of competition globally, right? The US and China are sort of leading, but at the highest levels, it's about who can make a better AI platform because it's a true superpower. So why at a company level would we be any different? If your competitor has a better ability to use AI than you do, you're going to fall behind because of the leverage it creates. So if you ask yourself that question, you say, I'm going to own it. Then you'd say, all right, what do I do? Do I give it out to all the departments and say, hey, go buy AI, go buy AI and figure it out? No, you wouldn't. You'd say, I'm going to own this and it's going to sit at the core of the business right next to the executive suite. And we're going to create this central AI brain and everyone's going to tap into it. So if I give it knowledge, we should all be operating from the same pool of knowledge, right? Not sales has one view of the world and someone else calculates sales differently because they have a different view of the world. No, you put it right at the center and you've got to own it, but you got to ask yourself, am I going to do that?
Mm.
Do I have the sort of intestinal fortitude to own this and see this through? Because I really believe it's a business-led, CEO-driven initiative where they say, this is something that's that important to my business and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. You have to decide, right, to do it. Right.
That's right. Like anything, you commit, you're going to be good at what you commit to. So is this, you can't dabble in AI. It's not going to work. That's what's not working. People say, oh, and there's pockets of success, right? Like AI can write emails fast. I mean, who opens an email anymore? Look what's happened. My inbox is 99% um, AI slop, right? So like it worked at first and then it doesn't, but yeah, if you're going to commit to it, you got to make that decision. And then, um, they're CEOs for a reason. They're running good businesses. I know it'll be successful then if they commit and own it.
Mm. Chris, what a great point to end on. Thank you for so much for being on the show. I love what you guys are building. I think it's really cutting edge and it's definitely a window into the future. So, wishing you and the team there at Virtuous AI all the very best.
Yeah, it was awesome being with you, Matt. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad we got to do this. We've been trying for a while.